I thought he was going to introduce Winston Churchill to us, and that would have been truly remarkable. So I'm going to talk about innovative measures of innovation and ways we can actually turn innovation from a word and a term we use, and we have a lot of anecdotal things, to something we truly quantify and measure. And on this slide, I just give some examples of places where different groups put down the top 10 innovations, innovative companies, laboratory equipment awards, et cetera. It turns out there's a lot of information out there where people are picking which innovations are very useful or good. There we go. So, as you just heard, everyone believes that innovation is critical. And I think the missing element is that there's no real measure of this. And if you go through report after report, you'll see, people will talk about R&D. And the President Obama, when he first got in, said he wants 3% R&D, be 3% of GDP. And different countries look at how their R&D over GDP measure is rising, and that includes China is doing the same. Nobody has a clue what the right number is. 3%. 30% we probably would think, maybe people in this room would think is a good idea, but the rest of the Americans would probably say, wait a second. But why 3, why not 4, why not 5? Who knows? There's no real. We have evidence on patents, copyrights, and things like that, but that's not an innovation. Many of the winning innovations that are considered the best ones are not patented. And most patents, it turns out, are basically economically useless. Just a very small number of patents turn out to be critical. Of course, unless you establish a patent wall where you're patenting enough things, around that even though each individual patent may not be very valuable, it becomes very hard to mimic somebody's product. Lots of times we just talk about how many STEM graduates or employees there are. And you see that all over the place. Commerce Department just had actually in May of this year, had a little report on manufacturing, and they happily reported there are more STEM workers in manufacturing per employee than the rest of the economy. They didn't do any other industry. Almost misspoke. But do we know what the right number is there? It can't be continually. Everyone can't be a STEM worker. Then the academics, we like scientific and engineering papers, and there's someone here from Thomson Reuters who will talk about some of the data that they have and things. Engineers and computer scientists often prefer conference proceedings data where things are presented, and then we count citations. The different ways people can show their toughness. And if it's basketball, it's scoring hoops or taking rebounds. Here it's how many cites you got on your paper, or et cetera. But those are not innovations. We believe they're inputs to innovation. They're things that may indicate, but they're not innovations. Economists, we have done the business of looking at a lot of outcome variables. Venture capital. Well, venture capital may go to innovations. It may also go to some silly things too. We look at growth of sales, particularly rapidly growing firms. They've got this name gazelles. They grow real rapidly. Doesn't necessarily mean they've actually got an innovation. It's an indicator, again, on the other side, the output side. Wealth investment, competitiveness. The one the economists prefer the most is changes in productivity, because most of the growth of the economy is a residual from capital and labor, i.e., so it has to be that we're using capital and labor better, so productivity is our best measure, but that's being measured as an innovation. That's being called an innovation, but we don't know really what it is. Now, just just to be clear, the social science people here are far better off than the physicists, who everything is dark energy. And, so if we were to tell you all the 90% of the economy or 98% is dark economic matter, we're not quite in that league, but it's about 2/3 is something that's happening in the economy that causes productivity that isn't just more workers coming in and more pieces of equipment. So I just end up, we don't measure innovation per se, and that seems to me is the missing thing in the whole analysis. So I went back to electrical engineer. Sadly, he looks pretty old over there, but when he did his great things, he looked much younger. But somehow or other, scientists, you always have pictures of them as they're wise old men. So this is Lord Kelvin, and he was really into the theme of the measurement. You could have used him instead of the Chinese emperor. So you see the quote, to measure is to know. If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. And your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. Then he goes on, and I give you a little more of the full quote. He also said there was nothing new to be discovered in physics. And all it remains is more and more precise measurement. And then he said, science is either physics or stamp collecting. Another quote. I don't think anyone would say there's nothing new to be discovered in the science of science policy, we go back to John Marburger, or innovation. And I couldn't find someone who said this, so this is a quote from myself. There is a world of new knowledge to be discovered about innovation now. And absent more innovation, we're stuck in anecdote collecting and so on. And that is knowledge of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. It is knowledge, because one anecdote is one piece of information, and it's better than nothing. But it's obviously, anecdotes can be chosen. I suppose if it's a representative one chosen randomly, it'll have a big error bar, as just said, but at least it won't be biased. But we think a lot of anecdotes are picked in a very peculiar and biased way, and not representative. So first I want to define what I mean by an innovation, and then talk about some issues one would have to do if one really is going to measure it. So I just said it's the creation of a new improved goods or services brought to the market for sale. And then I thought, wait a second, there are a lot of innovations that the government agencies would use, Defense Department and so on. So then I said, and process of production as well, or they're used by consumers, firms, or the government. So I could be a government agency or a firm, I make a new innovative thing, I don't bring it to the market to sell it to consumers or other companies or somebody else, I use it to make myself better, my operations better off. And then there become these interesting issues. What about a new good or service that really is better than what currently exists, but that ultimately doesn't make it in the market? So I bring out something that is twice as good as whatever the current competing products are, but I don't realize that you have got something that's 3 times as good. And I worked very hard in my company and my people. We did a really great job, twice as good as the current thing, but you've got one that's 3 times as good. You wipe us out in the market. And so I think that should be counted as an innovation, that not every innovation is going to succeed, but as long as it is something that is new and improved, we should count it. But somebody could disagree and say we should only count successful things. So in my definition, I use either brought to the market for sale or that are used. And I suppose I'd be a little careful about used if the two come out and mine is never used ever by anybody. Then what about prototypes or inventions that have not been marketed? Well, there are lots of those. And I would treat them as a separate entity, thinking them as an input to the innovation. But again, one recognizes there are different decisions have to be made. I went back to the the way we originally defined and the discussions of this, how do you define gross national product, which is the economic thing we use all the time? Well, they had exactly the same kind of discussion. I mean, these are mimicking them in some sense, because they had to say, well, do you count this or do you count that? And what happens if you count some? One of the big issues they had was, do you count household work, which was not brought to the market, hard to measure, and they decided, for better or worse, that so GDP does not include all the work done inside households. So if you cook them, if you buy a meal in a restaurant, it's counted. If you cook the meal at home, the cooking thing is not counted. It was a decision made. It may have been an incorrect decision, but it was a decision made. So you have to make these decisions. I thought, again, we shouldn't include, quote, scientific innovations. So the papers, a paper that is very important, it's listed as a very important paper, but if there's no product that goes to market, it's an input to the innovation process, and it may or may not be. And then I had a tough one, which you referred to in your discussion, on these Wall Street innovations. They create these derivatives that were supposed to spread risk widely and therefore lead us to a much less risky financial system. And they were telling you that. I mean, that was the sales pitch that they were doing, and they believed it. It wasn't like they were shilling. They weren't doing Madoff operations. They believed this. It turned out it was false. Now they created greater risk. And here I thought, well, maybe yes, because you bring a product forward, and you don't know what it may fail in a few years. You're stuck, because then you have a lot of products come in, say something that causes terrible pollution, which originally we don't think it's going to cause that. It comes in, it looks good. So I think you do have to, you may be in the business of saying, here's an innovation. Yes, we view it, but lo and behold, we find out this innovation, it doesn't really meet the new or improved. It does at the moment we're counting it. So you see, there's a time issue in this that is important. But all these are, I'm not laying down any bitter dictum or something, but they're the kind of issues we have to think about as we're going to define what we mean by an innovation and measure it. The NSF has made an effort to measure innovations. And this is the NSF's R&D survey is now called R&D and Innovation Survey. And it says it's got lots of companies covered, random sample, all the big ones and lots and sampling of smaller ones. And the questions that they use to do this are this. Did your company introduce new or significantly improved products by goods or services? Or new or significantly improved processes? And then they list in the following activities. I find that question, which has been widely used in Europe and in Australia, and it's used in Canada. So we have an extensive period of time of working with this. Not very good. It's a very weak measure. It's what you can do in a survey to a company when you're not measuring actually what they're doing. So it would be the equivalent of asking companies, did your company produce goods or services that you sold on the market? And the company says yes or no. And did you produce more than you did sell more than last year? Yes and no. Obviously, you want more quantification. Now they have added a question. They're asking for the percentage of sales. I'm still dubious, but we haven't yet seen the data's not yet public, that you can use it. And then they want to know, is it new to one of your markets, only new to your firm, meaning I mimicked somebody else's product, but I put my label on it, and they were unchanged or only marginally modified. I think those are not the way to go. It's not that this is bad. This is a positive step. But if this is the way we're going to be measuring innovation, we're not moving very far down the path of what I think is critical to do. And imagine think of something where we do have these clear measures in the science science metrics things. If you asked comparable questions to this to scientists about did you write papers that were new to your field? Did you and it'd be nothing about did they have a lot of references, citations, were people using the work? It's just not. It's a very fuzzy definition. So this is some facts that we have found in the NSF data. I think I stuck an extra I in there, Burdis. It should be B-R-D-I-S. Sorry. You pronounce it as Burdis, so that's where the extra I got in. So what they show is that only 3% of U.S. firms do R&D, and sizable fractions of these R&D firms report that they're producing either products or processes. But an awful lot of them say they're not. Boy, I wonder where's that? If you're a shareholder, you're probably sitting there saying, what on earth is this R&D going for? We don't know, because the question just doesn't let you, most U.S. firms do not do R&D. Well, most U.S. firms are small firms, and whatever they're doing, which may be very innovative, they don't have an R&D staff, they don't have a function at R&D, et cetera. Some of them report new significantly improved products or processes. What's striking about this is that given that most firms do not do R&D, and they do report 7-8% innovations, that most innovations in the U.S. economy are coming without R&D. This is, these are very, very fuzzy definitions, but that's the implication you get. That same result, somewhat different magnitudes, is found in the European, the Australian, and the Canadian surveys. So these questions lead us to something that's a little peculiar if you think about R&D. Now, I said here the R&D firms are larger, so the innovations may have a bigger effect, and we'll know when we get the sales question, we could do some things with that. But it's clear that this kind of trying to measure innovation leads us immediately to a puzzling question. And if you could say, oh, gee, most innovations are not done with R&D. So who needs the R&D? What's going on? Well, most engineers and scientists working in industry are not in R&D divisions, and whatever they are doing in making processes or products different is not counted as R&D in this survey. And we have to know what they're doing to get somewhere further along. So as I said, we need additional data. We cannot rely on this NSF type question. It obviously it's a step forward, but it isn't enough. So I put some questions here that I think are absolutely critical if we're going to seriously measure innovations. First of all, I said, does the value of innovations follow a power law? I'm almost certain it is, but I don't have data for this, which are like the patents, which most patents are useless in the sense of they don't earn the inventor or whoever it is any money, and they're never cited by any other patents. And so they're just, I did something, it's novel, but it has no economic value. And then there are a few that pay off immensely. I bet any amount of money that the same thing is true of innovations, but you certainly couldn't tell that from the NSF data because it doesn't measure any single innovation. I think the R&D related ones are more transformative. We have no evidence of that some of the other innovations may be smaller, marginal things, and they try to get at that. And then you say, if I'm a non-R&D, I'm a firm, and I say I don't do any R&D, but I have a lot of great innovations, well, maybe I'm using somebody else's R&D. The output of somebody else. Indeed, maybe somebody else is going to sue me on a patent violation, which, as you probably know, is rampant. HP is being sued all over the place. HP is suing, I don't know, I'll maybe get the companies where Apple is suing Google, or Google is suing everybody in that world, which tells us something about this. Then the question, which I think there's an answer, but I don't have data for this, is what are the inputs that go into the innovations from these non-R&D firms? And I'll bet money a lot of it is practicing engineers and scientists doing things that they may be sort of marginal in the sense that they're not giant R&D projects, but give me 10 or 15 marginal changes in a product and suddenly it's very different, and maybe it sweeps the market, and maybe one of those changes, even if not patented or not based on R&D, it's just does us wonders. And somebody told me yesterday about that they've done some tiny change in making one of these wrenches, where you used to use your finger to move the wrench things together, and apparently this is patented. And they just made a little shift, so now you crank something, and the speed with which your wrench works is sufficiently faster that will be very important for people who use wrenches a lot. And I bet that did not come out of any R&D lab. You just can't see a bunch of scientists working on that, but some engineers, or maybe some workmen. I mean, just somebody just sat there and said, hey, maybe my fingers are getting a little, whatever it is, and they changed it. So that's very important to know. Then I have some other questions here. When it comes to the government, and university, we now have programs in many universities, and they're often in engineering schools or engineering and management together, of how to get people, scientists, to become more innovative. Harvard just has a program in this. And we even have an innovation lab, which is over at the business school, but used by science students to come with their ideas, and then they talk to entrepreneurs and so on. But we have no idea whether we'll know in some future time, will it work? Is this the right way to try to do this? And I give some other things here, which I'll just skip over. Just the set of questions we need data to answer. And so I have a solution, which is that rather than looking at these questions about the existence or the percentage of sales, we're going to measure actual innovations. And then I'll say how we can do that and give you some evidence on that. And the idea is the key thing we're talking about is actually a improved product or process. And it is brought to market or used by somebody. So it's not just something on paper. It's something and it's a little more than a prototype. I would measure prototypes as well. And so I call it the primitive. You want to measure the primitive thing. That's what you want to do. And then you want to aggregate it up. And I think that the tool for this is that we have a lot of data now on the internet about new products, processes, and we can do this. And then so I asked two of my friends what they thought about it. And one of them, he said, oh, yeah. Well, you have your Chinese emperor. I have Americans here. And the other one went, yes. Some of you may know, or if you don't, your kids know, or somebody from your high school or junior high school class would know who these people are. Okay. There was some historic precedent for what I'm going to suggest as a way to deal with this. And you may or may not know that the building over there, that's a library. It's the Library of Congress, indeed. And then the person over there is somebody getting things out, and the dinosaur here is reading a book. And that's, of course, because books and libraries are dinosaurs in our world. But the time when something was done that gives me at least the belief that we can do this much better today, and so on. Small Business Administration, for whatever reason, in 1982, contracted a research consulting firm to read trade journals and compile lists of innovations. So people were sitting down and they were just reading through these trade journals and saying, oh, that's an innovation, that's not, etc. They cataloged 8,074 from 46 trade journals, And that's the Edwards and Gordon you can find it actually on the web. This is thanks to the wonderful things. It's up, the report is up on the web. It's one of these PDFs it takes a lot of space because they copy, they sort of, I say photocopied or whatever. And it gives the data. What was the model name of the innovation? There was a description, the year it came in, then they called it product or process. They made some judgment about significance, what it was, and then they put things about the origin of technology and source of funding. When I recognized this, I said, oh my goodness, okay, they could hire people, and we could potentially solve the jobs problem in the country by hiring thousands of Americans to go to libraries and do this. I don't know if the Congress would approve such an expenditure, or the president would propose it. But it would be a very inefficient way to operate as we did in 1982. And so my scheme is to do this with internet things. There still will be job creation in people because it has to be done that way. So we've been doing at our group at the NBER, and we've got some funding from, just I should say, Sloan Foundation and some funding from NIST for this. So we've been going and saying, well, what is available on the web? Let's start looking at it and what we could do if we were to do this as they did in 1982, reading trade journals. Well, first we found these lists of best innovations in firms, and I showed you those on the first opening slide. We found a lot of market research firms data that we can't access because they charge thousands of dollars, but they put together huge lists of new products. And we're going to try to wiggle around with them by saying, we may have money. Right now, we don't have any money to really to access that. But if it turned out it looked like that would be really useful data, and we could have tens of thousands of products and link them to the companies and fill in things, that we would do that. Corporate websites list all kinds of things. And we would propose going to every single large corporation with data on the NSF. And here I didn't stick in the extra I, Burtis survey. And so then we really would get a better sense of what the NSF data is telling us, because we would know a lot more things about them. There are other things, purchasing agents, ... The BLS, in creating national income statistics and price indices, they always have to deal with new products or processes. So they have to decide what happened to the price of computers if the new computer is twice as good as the old one and, let's say, costs $10 more. It's not an inflation, the $10 more. It's actually a price reduction. So we have federal agencies that are quite experienced in this and that actually identify when the BLS people go to this. I'll face it, the old way they did this. They don't do this. They use much more sophisticated things. But the person goes into the supermarket, and they're told to look for the following kind of item, and they look for it. And if it's different, they have to mark that down, and then they put down prices, and then the government makes some decision about it. It's all very professionalized, and the politicians cannot touch it. So we can have faith that even if they make mistakes, which I'm sure they do, it's all being done in a very an effort to get the right prices for us to make decisions. So I'm going to now talk about some of the things that we've looked at. We looked at in the Scientist magazine has its, and I took from 2011, top 10 life science innovations. They said they received 65 entries, meaning people who said, I've got one of them. They actually tell you the names of the judges. They give you their criterion, so you actually, you can begin saying, okay, what does this involve? The one that they called the number one is this pocket microscope called Lucas. They tell you who invented it, UCLA electrical engineer professor. But it actually isn't quite on the market yet, so it's a prototype. And I kept searching for where is the market. Have they sold it? No, but it's meant to do with this. You attach it to your either not your cell phone, but to your little. It's not an iPad here. It's a Sony thing that they've attached it to, and they will be able to process and get instant things about, do you have different kinds of disease things from small samples. You'll put something in, and given the price, the claim is it's going to revolutionize a lot of medicine in poor countries. Incredible. The $10 is the expected price in this thing, so it's really going to do. And we got some other ones. One that I would hope that maybe I can convince NIH or NSF to fund me to get, because I'd be the first social scientist and to have my own mini MRI in my office. Well, they've got a mini MRI to do scanning. It's $500,000, and that's way below the prices of the other ones. And there, you can buy it, and you quickly see that price, and you know that they had given the costs of MRIs machines. Boy, that's a great innovation. We have a bioscan optical imager, which is somehow or other it does more three-dimensional stuff. I don't know. And you're supposed to use that if you're doing mouse research. These are life science things. For $295,000, Columbia physicist is the person who actually, it seems to have been the main person who invented it. And we have a price for that as well. So we can find genuine innovations, sometimes with lots of information. I was very excited to see that R&D magazine, which has their 100 best innovations. Again, I took the latest one that they give 2011. They listed the team. And we actually are beginning to track down each member of teams of these innovations. The idea being, how many of them are PhDs? How many of them are bachelor's or master's? How many of them are scientists or engineers who do not publish papers, but actually are involved in creating this is what I think goes on a lot in industry. You want to capture that. This particular company is having some financial problems at the moment. This is a matter of which is interesting, A123 systems. And what often happens is that somebody innovates and brings a product to market. It doesn't quite, the economics are not so great at the time they bring it. 5 minutes, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I got 4 more slides, so that's just about right. And we would like to, with the database, to follow not simply what happens to A123 company that brought this innovation out, but also to follow what happens to the innovation itself, because later on someone else may take it up. Someone else may make use of it. That appears to be, from the quote anecdotal or historical things, that occurs lots of times. I make this wonderful innovation, but somehow my company fails. For whatever reason, I put so much resources in, your company picks it up, and lo and behold, it succeeds. Here's a GE corporate website we've gone to. And GE lists products by the zillions. And then they give you more information about the product. They don't give you exactly when the product was brought to market, but I'm sure we went to GE and asked them, they would be helpful on this. It's a giant turbine for things. There is the very latest, it wasn't invented by Tom Edison, it's post-Tom Edison, energy saving light thing. And they have this NPI is new products. So companies tell you this, so you can do that. And you go to the web and you pull them down and you put them into a database of some sort. There's an alternative strategy to what we're doing. So we were looking at different ways of doing this, is to go to the innovative companies. And so here's a list from MIT Tech Review of the innovative companies. And then we have to say, what are their devices? What is it that makes these particular companies, and using them as the fulcrum. The view is there are some companies that are out there on the innovation frontier. Your best thing is to find out what they're doing and put your resources on them as opposed to the innovations. There's obviously an issue there of if you're basically, you want to get innovations, okay, you want to go into the space where companies are doing a lot of innovating, but then you're going to be missing a whole set of other things. You have to do sampling the way the NSF does in their survey. Oops, I'm almost done. Okay, so what are the kind of issues in going down this direction? The first thing is we don't have a population list of innovations. So basically, you're going to have to identify sites. And in the 1982 study, they said, go read these trade magazines. So our view is, yeah, we're going to make lists of things, and then we're going to go. And we will sample inside these different lists and see what we have, and try to put together something that would be reasonable representative. And obviously, we want to overrepresent the companies that are the most innovative. And we want to overrepresent the innovations that get big awards as the top 10, because they are a good seeding, but we have to do something about the innovation that nobody notices, the small company, and that's tough. I'll just say that. And then we quickly find out that different sources have different information. The R&D magazine tells us the names of the people. We can go to LinkedIn and we can check, and we can call the company. I'm sure they'd be very helpful with this. And some of them have other pieces of information. Some of them said this comes from a scientific advance at Columbia University by this physicist, or this comes from that. And if you think of a database that would be complete on innovations, you're going to have some pieces of information that are readily available on the internet. Other pieces of information, you would have to have graduate students or paid employees or somebody going and actually tracking down. Call up the company, do a more extensive search. And so there would be some jobs created that would be useful to people, I think. Now the question we had was, gee, how do we do this? Well, one possibility is to crowdsource the data gathering. We also could ask people, we could say, here's a puzzle. The following innovation was created by this firm. We want people to find out, who are the scientists involved, whatever parts of the database we didn't have, we'd ask people to fill in. And we could imagine having a game, this being set up like a computer game. And so people would go and they would do this and they would have fun. So hopefully is a game. 1 minute. Okay, it's one slide left. This is almost there. Okay. Or we could try to use some advanced natural process computer programming. And we're working with some computers scientists as to probably we'll do both and see what happens, and et cetera. And then we have to quantify the importance of the innovation, which is complicated because the innovation that looks great today may indeed bring down the world economy tomorrow. And so that changes over time, et cetera. Okay, I will now just get to the last one, so I'll be almost exactly on time. And I said we need, at the bottom, need regular updates of this. Because that's the virtue of having it done natural processes. Once we get it, you could just have it coming out the same way GDP just comes out every quarter. They make changes quarterly because the more information comes in. We would love to have a national innovation measure with lists of things that companies could then see. It becomes a resource for everybody to use, open to everyone. And the conclusion is that since in some sense I'm selling or trying to propose this solution to the problem. And I think as long as we're in a knowledge-based economy, which we are, the acquisition of wealth and economic progress is based on knowledge today. It's not based on us conquering some land in some place, et cetera. There's still value to going underneath the ground and pulling things up, we've seen, but that's all based on science and engineering. So I think we have to create a national innovations database, and otherwise our national economic, in national income and other accounts are really incomplete. So I say we want to do this. I believe it is doable, and I think it would provide a guide for lots of things. Then Lord Kelvin said, oh, it just looks like stamp collecting, and I said, no, it isn't. And there is Lord Kelvin, including on a $100 sterling bill, which is not the price of this. It would be more. Thank you.
We can have about 2 minutes of questions. If you can come to the 2 microphones here, identify yourself, and question, please.
Hi, Andy Toole, USDA. I have a question about the definition of innovation. What I've run into is a complication because innovation can be interpreted as technological improvements on a product, and innovation can be interpreted as what consumers demand, but they're not always compatible definitions. What's your take on that?
I suppose I'm more favorable to the consumer demand because it's got to be a product or process that people are willing to buy and in some sense pay more money for. Although they may be paying less money, but they're getting more bang for the buck. So a pure technological thing that no one wants. That's why I wanted to make it as it has to go to the market or some user.
Question over there, sir.
Philip Lapel from the MIT Washington office. So you started out talking about some of the innovation inputs that people have traditionally measured, patents and stuff like that, and then you talked about all these new output measures. Have you given any thought to possible ways to connect them together to see which patents and publications actually get used and,
Yes.
and valuable things like that that would really help with guiding the R&D process?
Yeah, yes, and since I used up too much time, there was one of the lines that said, it was talking about all the research. This is what economists and all the social sciences would immediately do with the database. You put that database up, you're going to see PhD theses written all over the place doing exactly what you said, and I assume there'd be engineering and other, it wouldn't just be the social scientists who would do it because these are, that's the kind of things anybody who likes quantities and numbers, we'd all do it together. So, absolutely. Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah, Mike Mandel, Progressive Policy Institute. In your intro, you talked about the need for exact measures. I can't remember the word you used, but you said
Precise was
well, no, I mean,
Kelvin's.
he actually talked about the need for precise and exact measures. Okay, the sort of measures you're talking about are fuzzy. Is there a conflict here between the way that do we have to start thinking about these things differently?
Oh, well, I think you think about almost any economic thing, and think of the price indices, it's always a bit fuzzy. The precise cannot be the same meaning that you would have for a precise measure of a length of or a moment of time determined, a minute determined by some I don't know how they quite do the minutes, but there's some radiation or something going out of something where the National Institute of Standards has the things. It can't be like that. It's got to be like the other parts of the Department of Commerce. We know the National Income Accounts is filled with, quote, imprecise, but defined and things, and then we always try to improve them. I think that's the right way. Kelvin used precise. That would not be the right word.
Thank you, Professor.